I used to clean the house when my husband wasn't home. Only my son and his friend were there. But once I got stuck in the washing machine and my friend decided to help me. It should have been just another ordinary day. Nothing ever shifted here. Not really. The hours moved like warm syrup. My house stayed quiet, clean, faithful. My marriage, too. In the mornings, he left early, always with the same words, "Call if you need anything." I never did. Not really. I'd learned, over the years, how to take care of things. Groceries, towels, plumbing, loneliness. My son, Brandon, was 19. Quiet, uncomplicated. He came and went with the rhythm of someone who never needed to explain himself, which meant I never asked. He still lived at home, for now. College part-time. Worked at a mechanic's shop. He brought friends over sometimes. They laughed in the basement, played loud music, grilled food in the backyard, and used all the ketchup. One of them, the one I never quite noticed, started staying longer. Evan. I remembered the first time he called me by my name and not Mrs. Allen. The way it sounded in his mouth made something pull tight in my chest, but I didn't know what it meant then. I only knew that he'd started doing that thing young men do when they don't want to be ignored anymore. Standing a little straighter, letting silences linger longer, brushing past instead of stepping aside. And I had noticed. God help me, I noticed. That day, the washing machine day, was warm for early spring. I'd opened the windows. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and grass. Brandon had gone to pick up a part for his car, said he'd be back in an hour. I hadn't asked who was still downstairs watching TV. The machine was acting up again. It always stuck at the spin cycle. I was kneeling beside it, trying to reach a sock jammed in the back of the drum. The metal edge pressed into my stomach as I leaned in too far. My foot slipped, and then nothing but the echo of my own startled breath as I found myself half folded into the machine. I froze. Half in, half out. Elbows scraped, chest tight. Legs pinned. Ridiculous. I laughed softly under my breath. And then I heard him. Steps behind me. Slow. Then a voice deeper than I remembered. "You stuck." My whole body went still. I tried to twist around but couldn't. "Evan?" I said, instantly flushed. "Yeah." A pause. "You okay?" "Yes." My voice caught. The drum caught my arm. "I can't quite, can you help pull me back?" His footsteps approached. "Hold on." His hand landed gently on my ankle. "Just tell me if it hurts." I didn't answer. He pulled, gently at first, then stronger. My body moved slightly, but the machine held fast to the shape of me. "Wait," I whispered. "What?" "Your hand is." My skin burned. Not from pain. From heat. He stilled. "Sorry." The next time he tugged, he used both hands. One braced under my thighs. I don't remember breathing. Only the feeling of being lifted, of being seen. Not just as someone's mother. Not just as a house ghost. But as something else. Someone else. When he pulled me out, I stumbled back into him. My shoulder pressed against his chest. He didn't move away. I looked up. His face was too close. His hand was still on my waist, just for a second longer than it needed to be. "Thanks," I said. He didn't say you're welcome. He just looked at me like a question that knew its answer already. Then he stepped back, and everything inside me collapsed into silence. That night, I told myself it was nothing. Just a moment. An awkward, forgettable thing. The kind of memory that dissolves by morning. But it didn't dissolve. It grew. By midnight, I was lying in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. My husband slept beside me, hand resting absently against my hip, like a paperweight. I didn't move. I replayed it, over and over. The heat of Evan's palm. The way his breath slowed when I leaned back into him. The way his eyes had darkened, not with confusion, but certainty. I had seen it. I had felt it. And I had done nothing to stop it. He was back 2 days later. Brandon wasn't home. I didn't ask why. The doorbell rang at 4:10. I opened it expecting a delivery. But there he stood, hands in the pockets of his hoodie, hair slightly damp like he'd just come in from the rain. "Brandon around?" he asked, not looking at me directly. "No," I said. "He's at work." A beat. "Mind if I wait?" I hesitated. "Then sure." He stepped inside. I tried to focus on my coffee, my book, the time, anything but the way he hovered near the kitchen door like he belonged in the space. "Washing machine okay?" he asked eventually with something like a smirk. I glanced up sharply. "Fine," I said. Another pause. He nodded. "Good." Then silence. Thick, sharp around the edges. I turned back to the sink, but I heard his steps. The sound of him moving behind me. I turned slightly. He stood close. Not invading, but not leaving room either. "I wasn't trying to be weird the other day," he said suddenly. "I know," I said, too quickly. He nodded. "Just. You looked like you needed help." I looked at him then, and what I saw wasn't a boy anymore. It was a man. One who watched me like I was something breakable and burning at the same time. "I should go," he said, voice lower now. And yet he didn't move. Neither did I. The first time I dreamt about him, it wasn't explicit. It was his voice saying my name. Just once. Like it mattered. Like it wasn't just a sound, but a sentence. I woke up gasping. The room was cold. My husband was snoring gently. My hands shook when I reached for my robe. The coffee burned the tip of my tongue that morning, but I didn't care. I didn't taste anything anymore. He was back. Again. Brandon was upstairs. Shower running. I opened the door and there he was. "Hey, hey." No reason to be here. None needed. He leaned against the counter while I chopped vegetables. I tried not to watch his hands. The way they flexed when he leaned on his palms. The way his sleeves were pushed up, revealing forearms I didn't remember noticing until now. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I looked up. "Why?" "You seem," he tilted his head. "Tense." I paused. "I'm fine." He nodded. "I could help," he said, stepping forward. "If you want." I blinked. He took the knife from my hand before I could reply. I stepped back. He began slicing, careful, precise. The kitchen went silent except for the sound of steel against wood. I shouldn't have watched him, but I did. And when his hand brushed mine as he passed the plate, I didn't flinch. I didn't look away either. He did, but only for a moment. I found excuses to clean more often, to stay downstairs when I heard the front door open, to linger longer in rooms where I knew he might pass. Nothing happened. Not really. But the space between us kept tightening. And one afternoon, when I bent to pick up something from the floor, I felt him behind me again. Not touching. Just there. Close. My breath caught. His did too. I straightened. Our eyes met. He didn't smile. Neither did I. But we both knew. Everything was already happening. And still, nothing had happened. Yet, the last moment of part one comes quietly, like a seed dropped into soil. He stayed late that evening. Brandon was in his room. Door shut, music loud. I brought out a bowl of fruit, something to fill the air with noise. He took an orange, peeled it slowly, offered me half. I accepted. Our fingers brushed. Again. Too long. He didn't look away. His eyes held mine steady, unreadable. And something inside me trembled. Not from fear. From recognition. I wanted to look away. I didn't. That was the moment. The look. Too long. Too sure. My hand still held the half orange, but my body was holding something else now. Something I couldn't name yet, but it had already begun. I told myself I was imagining it. That maybe I was just lonely. That maybe Evan was just kind, attentive, raised right, that his glances weren't weighted, that his hand didn't linger intentionally. But I stopped believing that the night I lay awake in my bed and touched the place on my wrist where his thumb had brushed and felt my breath falter like it did when I was a girl and had just been seen for the first time. I hadn't felt that in years. Not with my husband. Not with anyone. It was like being reintroduced to the possibility of warmth, the dangerous kind, the kind that wakes you up at 2 a.m. with images that won't leave you alone. I saw Evan more often now. Or maybe I just noticed him more. He came by even when Brandon wasn't home. Said he was dropping off something, borrowing something, returning something. The reasons blurred. Once, I opened the door without makeup, wearing a thin cardigan over a camisole I usually wouldn't wear in front of anyone but myself. I didn't realize until he looked at me not with surprise, but with attention, that I had wanted him to see me this way. Sorry, I muttered. Wasn't expecting anyone. You look fine, he said, and the way his eyes didn't rise above my collarbone made my throat dry. I invited him in anyway. I always did. It started with his hands again. He had stayed behind to help me move a box of old books upstairs. Brandon was out. My husband had gone on a business trip. It was just the two of us, the quiet pulsing between us like a second heartbeat. The box wasn't heavy, but I let him carry it. I led him upstairs, and I felt his steps behind me. Close. I could hear his breathing. We placed the box in the guest room. I turned to thank him. His hand touched my elbow. That was all. But it held me in place, like a cord drawn tight. I should go, he said softly. Okay. But neither of us moved. I could feel the heat of him, the steady presence of something unspoken. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded. You're tense, he added. He always said that. Maybe because it was the only thing he could say instead of I can't stop looking at you. I didn't reply. He stepped forward. Not much. Just a shift in air. Can I? His hand hovered near my shoulder. I nodded before I realized what I was agreeing to. His fingers were warm, firm. He pressed gently into the muscle near my neck, then down across my shoulder. It was nothing more than touch, but my whole body responded like it had been starving. I exhaled, too sharp, too real. He stopped. I didn't mean, he began, but I shook my head. No, it's okay. He resumed, slower. His breath was uneven. Then his thumb grazed the edge of the strap of my camisole. I froze. His hand stilled. Neither of us breathed. Then one step back. Sorry, he said again, but softer this time. Regretful. I turned to face him. His eyes were dark. Not playful. Not ashamed. Just certain. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to walk away. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, clutching the pillow like it might silence the hum under my skin. I remembered the pressure of his hands, the way they had mapped my shoulder like it was something worth knowing. I remembered the way he looked at me. I remembered how I hadn't looked away. The next morning, I saw myself in the mirror, not younger, not prettier, but different, like a photograph taken in better light. It happened on a Thursday. I wasn't wearing anything special, just soft jeans, an old shirt, hair barely combed. He came by with something for Brandon. A charger, or maybe a part. I don't remember. Brandon was out. Again. The timing unspoken and perfect. I told myself I wouldn't let it go further. We sat in the kitchen. Talked about nothing. I offered tea. He said yes. He watched me as I moved. His eyes not hungry, not searching, just steady, fixed. Like I filled some page he hadn't known was missing words. I poured his tea. His hand touched mine. This time, I didn't flinch. He didn't move away. We stood that way for a second too long. Then he said it quietly, without demand. I think about you. I couldn't speak. Not just like this. I mean, always. Still, I said nothing. His hand moved to my jaw. Light. Barely there. But real. I've wanted to, he began, then stopped himself. I didn't stop him. When his mouth found mine, it wasn't desperate. It was slow. Careful. Like he wanted me to feel every second of it. And I did. The world dropped away. I dissolved. There was no first move, no who started what. Only breath. Contact. Permission. I don't remember walking to the couch. I only remember the way my hands found his shoulders, the way his body pressed against mine, the way my heart slammed against my ribs like it had been waiting years for this moment. Closeness happened without a name, without a label, only with need. My skin burned under his hands. His breath was warm near my ear. You feel it too, And God, I did. Not just the press of him, the heat, but the truth of it. That I was alive. That I wasn't lost. That I hadn't been invisible. Not to him. Morning came like a thief. Light spilled across the room like a crime scene. I sat on the edge of the bed, not our bed, just the guest room couch where everything had unraveled, and tried to breathe through the guilt. But it didn't come. Not right away. Only the ache did. The ache of hunger returning. Of touch withdrawn. Evan was still asleep, curled against the edge of the cushions like he didn't belong in any space for too long. I watched him. I shouldn't have, but I did. And in that moment, something settled inside me. Not love, not longing, but dependence. I needed the version of myself I had found in his arms. He left before noon. No promises, no regrets. Only a long glance at the door. Only a single word later. And I nodded, pretending I still had a script to follow. Pretending I hadn't fallen into a space I might not climb out of. I told myself it was a mistake. A one-time thing. But I replayed it every night. The silence. The slowness. The way I had stopped being just someone's wife and started being someone again. I was full of thoughts now. They bloomed in the shower. At the stove. In line at the grocery store. They throbbed under my ribs and curled beneath my tongue. I didn't speak them. But I didn't let them go either. The fire had started. And I couldn't stop fanning it. The next time I saw Evan, he didn't smile. He didn't touch me. But he didn't look away either. We stood in the kitchen, and all the air between us remembered. He passed me a cup of water, and my fingers trembled when they brushed his. I said thank you. He didn't reply. But his eyes said everything. We were in something now. Something neither of us had named. But both of us already knew. During the day, I was a wife. Still, I folded towels, cooked rice, replied to texts with exclamation points and kisses. I smiled when my husband brought home wine. I laughed when he misquoted movies. I sat across from him at dinner and asked about his day, even when my mind was nowhere near the table. At night, I became something else. Not a lover, exactly. Not a mistress. That felt too dramatic, too theatrical. I was a shadow version of myself. The self that burned. That trembled at the sound of a message notification. That replayed every moment in stolen silence. That wanted more and hated herself for wanting it. Evan didn't demand. But he waited. He was always there. At the edges. Not begging. Just being. That made it worse. It made it impossible to forget. We didn't talk about what it was. Not directly. But it had become regular. The quiet visits. The touches that didn't ask permission anymore. The way he sometimes looked at my mouth instead of my eyes. The way my hands knew where to go without hesitation. There was no need to name it. The need spoke for itself. But it became harder to carry. The guilt, yes. But not in the way I expected. It wasn't a knife. It was a weight. Soft, constant, crushing. I stopped meeting my friend for coffee. I stopped going on walks with my husband. I stopped looking at myself in the bathroom mirror after brushing my teeth. I told myself it was control, that I was choosing, that I could stop if I wanted. But my phone was always at arm's reach, and I never turned off notifications. He asked to meet me one afternoon. Not at the house. Not near Brandon. Not near the ghosts of laundry rooms and couches. A bookstore. Neutral. Safe. He was already there when I arrived. I saw him through the window, leaning against the wall of the cafe section, flipping through something he clearly wasn't reading. He looked up. He didn't smile. I didn't either. But I walked in anyway. We ordered coffee, sat outside, spoke about nothing, until he said, "This isn't enough." I looked at him. He wasn't angry, just tired. "I want to see you," he said. "Not hide with you." I swallowed. "We can't," I whispered. "Why not?" I stared at my cup. "Because I'm not who you think I am." "You are," he said quietly. "You just don't remember." I didn't respond. He reached across the table, touched my hand, not possessively. Just contact. Just presence. "I don't want to be your shadow." I pulled away. "I'm sorry." He nodded, slowly, then stood. I watched him leave, and something in my chest went with him. That night, I cried. Not because I regretted, but because I knew I would do it again. Because I already missed the version of myself I had let him see. I avoided him for days. Didn't answer messages. Didn't respond when Brandon said Evan was coming over. I made excuses. Said I was tired. Had errands. That work had picked up. I lied. To everyone. To myself. The mirror became the enemy. I saw her, the woman who had once been easy to explain. Now she was fractured. A reflection composed of parts. Eyes too bright. Mouth too quiet. A collarbone I hadn't noticed in years. My husband noticed too, in his own way. "You look different lately," he said once over breakfast. "Healthier." I smiled too quickly. "Sleeping better." He nodded. I didn't sleep at all. The breaking point came quietly. I found a note in my purse, one Evan had left weeks ago. A dumb joke, scribbled on the back of a receipt. I held it like it was glass. And I knew. This wasn't going away. I texted him. "Come late. Just for a little while. Please." He didn't reply. But he came. We didn't speak when he entered. We didn't touch at first. I sat beside him on the couch. His hand found mine. And I said it. "I don't want to lie anymore." He looked at me. "Then don't." I looked down. "I mean, I don't want to lie to myself." He nodded, almost like he'd been waiting for that. Then he leaned forward, his breath near my ear, his hand resting close. And I stopped thinking. Everything blurred. No names. No past. No husband. No son. Only warmth. Only him. Only me. And the edge of something we had already crossed long ago. She was someone new. Someone undone. Someone who had stopped lying. Even if only inside. He came for the last time on a Tuesday. He didn't text first. Didn't ask. I opened the door, and there he stood, his hands empty, his face unreadable, like a page before the ink has dried. I stepped aside. He entered. The house was too quiet. My husband wouldn't be home until evening. Brandon was out. We didn't speak. He sat on the edge of the couch, not waiting for me to join him. I stood across the room, my fingers brushing the windowsill. Not watching him. Not yet. He spoke first. "I'm leaving." The words didn't land all at once. They hung in the air, soft, almost kind. "Where?" "Portland." "Got a job offer." "How long?" He shrugged. "Could be permanent." I nodded. Not because I accepted it, but because I had no choice. Silence followed. Not awkward. Just the end of a road. He looked at me for a long time. "I don't want to be your shadow." He'd said it before, but now it landed differently. Now it wasn't a request. It was a farewell. I crossed the room, sat beside him. Not touching, just near. I know, I whispered. I never was, he added, quieter still. You saw me. I closed my eyes. I think you were the only one who ever saw me too. Then, slowly, he reached for my hand. Fingers laced. Nothing hungry. Nothing frantic. Only the warmth of two people holding something they weren't ready to let go of. His thumb brushed the inside of my palm. I leaned my head to his shoulder. And we stayed like that. Still. Breathing. Unraveling the last knot between us in silence. Later, when he stood to leave, he paused at the door. I won't reach out, he said. I nodded. I know. But I hope you do. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know yet what hope meant. He leaned down, pressed his lips against my forehead, soft, final. Then left. And just like that, he was gone. I stood in the middle of the kitchen for a long time after the door closed. Not moving. Not thinking. Only. Present. Completely, painfully present. The house felt different now. Not empty. Not full. Just still. I went upstairs and looked at myself in the mirror. Not to fix my hair. Not to judge. Just to see. My face was quiet. My mouth soft. My eyes older. But I didn't look away. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was watching a stranger. I looked like someone who had lived through something. Someone who had been held and let go. Someone who had chosen. My husband came home at 6:12. He kissed my cheek. Asked how my day was. I said quiet. He smiled. That's good. And maybe it was. That night, I didn't avoid him. We lay in bed, not close, not distant. He placed his hand on my back like he used to. I let him. And when he whispered, I missed you, I whispered back, I know. He didn't ask what I meant. He didn't have to. In the morning, I made coffee with bare feet on the cold tile. I wore the robe I used to hate. It felt lighter now. Not because anything had changed, but because I had. I didn't wait for Evan to call. I didn't check the door or scroll through old messages or search his name in my phone. I didn't need to. He had already given me everything I didn't know I needed. And I didn't leave empty. I walked through the house, not like someone trying to escape, but like someone who had returned. Not to a life, to herself. I opened the windows. Let the wind in. Let the morning in. Let the silence breathe. And when I passed the hallway where it all began, where the machine once held me, I smiled. Not from shame, from understanding. That sometimes, getting stuck is just another way to be found. Not a tragedy, not a romance, not an affair. A beginning. Quiet. Certain. Mine.